Chapter 9 of Ruth Fielding of the Red Mill. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sonali Punja. Ruth Fielding of the Red Mill, or Jasper Parlow's Secret by Alice B. Emerson. Chapter 9. The Crest of the Wave. The rain could not last forever. Nature must cease weeping sometime. Just as girls, far away from their old homes and their old friends, must cease wetting their pillows with regretful tears after a time, and look forward to the new interests and new friends to which they have come. Not that Ruth wept much, but the rainy days of that first week were necessarily trying. On Saturday, however, came a clear day. The sun shone, the drenched trees shook themselves, and the wind came and blew softly and warmly through their branches to dry their tender foliage. The birds popped out of their hiding places and began to sing and chirp as though they never could be glad enough for this change in the weather. There was so much to see from the kitchen door at the Red Mill that Ruth did not mind her work that morning. She had learnt now to help Aunt Alvirah in many ways. Not often did the old lady have to go about moaning her old refrain, "Oh, my back, and oh, my bones! Oh, my back, and oh, my bones!" The housework was all done, and the kitchen swept and as neat as a new pin, when the gay tooting of the Cameron automobile horn called Ruth to the porch. There was only Helen on the front seat of the car, but in the tonneau was a bundled-up figure surmounted by what looked to be a scarlet cap, which Ruth knew instantly must be Tom's. Ruth did not know many boys, and never having had a brother, was not a little bashful. Besides, she was afraid Tom Cameron would make much of her connection with his being found on the Wilkins Corners road that dark night after his accident. And there was another thing that made Ruth feel diffident about approaching the boy. She had borne it all the time in her mind, and the instant she saw Tom in the automobile it bobbed up to the surface of her thought again. It was Jabe Potter. He did it. So, for more reasons than one, Ruth approached the motor car with hesitation. "Oh, Ruth!" cried Helen, putting out a gauntleted hand to her. "So this horrid rain hasn't washed you away? You won't like the Red Mill if the weather keeps this way. And how do you get on?" she added, lowering her voice. "How about the ogre?" "He has not ground me into bread flour yet," responded Ruth, smiling. "I see he hasn't. You are just as plump as ever, so he hasn't starved you either. Now, Ruth, I want you to know my brother Tom, whom you have met before, without his having been aware of it at the time," and she laughed again. Tom's left arm was in a sling, and the scarlet bandage around his head made him look like a pirate, but he grinned broadly at Ruth and put out his lean brown hand. "When I heard about you, Miss Fielding, I knew you were a spunky one," he said. "And anybody that Reno takes to, the way she did to you, is all right. Besides, Nell is just spoons on you already, and Nell, like Reno, doesn't take to every girl." "The doctor said an outing in the car wouldn't hurt Tom," went on Helen, "and we are going to run up the valley road a way. Now, Ruth Fielding, you go get your hat and coat and come with us." "I don't know that I may," Ruth said timidly. "I'll believe that he's an ogre then, and that you're kept a prisoner in this awful castle," cried Helen. "I'd love to go," murmured Ruth. "Then go and ask," urged her friend, while Tom added good-naturedly, "Yes, why not come along? Don't be afraid of Nell's driving. She handles the car all right." Ruth knew that Uncle Jabez had gone to town. She had a feeling that he did not like the Camerons and might oppose her friendliness with them. But he was not at hand now to interfere with her innocent pleasures. She went in and asked Aunt Alvirah if she could take the ride. "Why not, child? You've been the very best helpmate ever an old woman had."
"Oh, my back, and oh, my bones."
"Run along and have your fun, dearie. You need not be back till supper time. You have earned your little outing, that's sure and certain." Before Helen had picked her up on the road to the Red Mill that first day,
Ruth had never ridden a motor car.
On that occasion they had travelled very slowly while the girls talked. But now, when she was seated beside her friend, Helen ran the auto on its high gear, and they shot away up the level river road at a pace that almost took Ruth's breath away. "Up here among the foothills is the big Minturn Pond Dam," Tom said, leaning forward to speak to their guest. "It's 20 miles above your uncle's dam and is a deal bigger. And some say it is not safe. Wait, Nell. Slow down so that we can see the face of the dam from the overlook." The speed of the car was immediately reduced under Helen's manipulation, and then she swerved it into a short side road running toward the river, and they came out upon a little gravelled plaza in the center of a tiny park, which gave a splendid view of the valley in both directions. But the young people in the motor car turned their eyes to the west. There the face of the Minturn Dam could be discerned, and even as they looked at it, they seemed to see it changing, dissolving, covered with mist, and spouting geysers of what at first seemed like smoke. But it was Tom who realized the truth. "She's burst!" he cried. "The old dam's burst! There she goes in a dozen places." Although they were several miles down the valley, the thunder of the bursting masonry now echoed in their ears. And up from the bottom of the wall, near its center, a great geyser spouted. In a moment the wall crumbled, and they saw tons upon tons of the masonry melt away. The waters of the pond burst through in a solid flood and charged down the valley, spreading wider and wider as it charged on, and bearing upon its crest every light and unstable structure found on its path. It was a startling, terrifying sight. No wonder the two girls cried out in alarm and clung together. The sight of the charging flood fascinated them. But then they were aroused, and that within the first half minute of their terror, by Tom. He was trying, crippled as he was, to climb over into their seat. "What are you doing, you foolish boy?" cried Helen. "Sit down." "We've got to get out of here," muttered the excited youth. "Why, we are safe here. The water will never rise to this height." I know it," groaned Tom, falling back into his seat and paling because of the pain from his arm, which he had twisted. "But don't you see? There are many down the valley who won't know of this until too late. Why, they can't see it at the bridge at Culm's Falls until the flood is right upon them." "It's true," gasped Helen. "What shall we do?" "We must warn them. We can warn them, can't we?" demanded Ruth. "This car runs so fast. You can control it so well, Helen. Can't we warn them?" "Try it, sis," shouted Tom. "You can do it." And already his sister, setting her teeth hard upon her lower lip, was backing and turning the motor car. In 20 seconds they were dashing off upon the track over which they had so recently come, on the road down the valley, with the flood following fast behind them. End of chapter 9.